Today is November 11th, 2014, and you're listening to Comm Chatter Off Duty. I'm Pixley, and with me as always is Alderin Durand.
Hello.
This is the show where we fill in the gaps between regular Comm Chatter, or, as I would like it to be, and actually lately has been, a show for going over news relating to Star Citizen that is relevant to role-playing, and that is certainly the case for today. So, news topics. We have the 1-year anniversary of Comm Chatter. If you've listened to the most recent episode of Comm Chatter, you will, of course, already know that. We had CitizenCon and PAX Australia since we last recorded, which is really sad that it's been that long. We also have a couple of interviews to share with you. The first of which is with Skymaster, the creator and admin of Star Citizen Roleplay, a website dedicated to that very thing, and also an interview with Senet, the guy who created Star's Oratoria, which is the Star Citizen podcast whose termination inspired Comm Chatter. All that after the jump. As I mentioned in the intro, it has been 1 year and 9 days, as of this recording, since the release of the first episode of Comm Chatter. An awful, awful production that we're actually not deeply ashamed of. Not really, though.
We've gotten better.
Yes, we have certainly progressed since then. But the fact of the matter is, we beat Senet Van Ryn.
Yay. I'm sure there are other people, but he's the only one we know of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would imagine he's...
Well, we beat him, show duration-wise. He's still got an episode on us for the in-character stuff. If you want to call his in-character, it was kind of a blend.
Well, I mean, if we count in-character and out-of-character stuff, we are totally ahead.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
Yay! We win. But, yeah, we've come a long way, and we hope to continue a long way further. So.
Yeah, I mean, we know there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
We don't do this professionally. We've never done it before.
Yep. There's nowhere to go but up. So, yeah, we did it. We made it a year. Many more years to come, I hope. At least to launch. Because that would be really lame if we didn't. Hooray!
Yeah, cake for everyone. Not really.
Yeah. That would be expensive to get cake. Just between the two of us, even. Us and, like, the two people who listen. I mean, that's, like, doubling the cost.
Yeah. You know, there's one thing we still have to do, which is the sort of episode recorded while playing Arena Commander.
I mean...
I'm wondering if maybe we should save that for when multi-cruise ships are out.
I don't know. I think that would work for AC 1.0.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll stream it. It'll be great.
Yeah, since
Okay.
I've got decent hardware now, I probably could stream it if Time Warner lets me.
Oh, yeah. So I'll be streaming it.
When we eventually get around to it.
Yeah. So
It should be soon, TM.
no, that's a Blizzard trademark. We can't use that.
And CIG and CCP and almost every developer that gives regular-ish updates.
Alrighty. In other news, we managed to be gone long enough for CitizenCon and PAX Australia to happen. That kind of sucks. And it's been so long since PAX Australia now that is it even really worth covering, like, in depth?
Okay, well, honestly, I don't think there is really all that much outside of the FPS reveal. Now, if you want to go look into that, I suggest you go look at the stream archive. It's up on YouTube, and I'm not sure if it's still up on Twitch. I'm pretty sure they have a time limit on that now, to how long they host it.
Yes, they do. Well, I mean, it was a couple of weeks ago, so it should still be up there. But
Anyway, it's
if you're
up on.
listening, if you're listening to us in the distant future of like 3 months from now, you'll probably just only find it on YouTube.
And you'll probably be playing it soon.
Yeah. Although the Persistent Universe demo that was debuted at CitizenCon probably will not be anytime soon, and will probably
Well,
be found on
the
YouTube.
supposedly, unless I'm misremembering this, the social module is supposed to drop a few months after the FPS module.
Yeah.
So maybe early summer, midsummer.
Yeah, but I mean, what I consider Persistent Universe is more than just the social
Yeah, but
module.
it's a step closer.
It is a step closer, but certainly not what we see in the demo trailer thing, which that was awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but going back to the FPS demo, I thought that was really cool, and I kind of just want to say one thing about it, and that bits of its combat, I mean, especially since it has the zero-G thing going on, is a lot like the game Shattered Horizon, which...
I remember that. I never played it, but it looked amazing.
Yeah.
My computer at the time was junk. It was like running a single core AMD. I don't remember. It was. That was my first game. It was my first gaming PC. It was holding up back when dual cores were the norm.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to play Shattered Horizon really that much either, but that was because I was running XP, because when it came out, 7 had only been out for a few months, and I certainly hadn't made the switch yet. But it certainly seemed really cool. But by the time I was able to get around to playing during a free weekend, there wasn't anybody on. It was all old and stuff. Well, that was like 5 years ago. Damn.
And
yeah, hopefully
it had some of the most amazing graphics at the time, didn't it?
Well, yeah, because it required DX10, which is why I couldn't run on my XP machine. Remember DX10? I like how we went basically from DX9 to DX11 with like 2 games I can think of that actually were DX10. Those 2 being that and Halo 2 for PC. Although, actually, did it require DX10 or was it just like Vista only because Microsoft were douchebags?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's irrelevant. Moving onward.
Hell, I've still got a game that only plays on DX6. I've got to reinstall XP on a virtual machine for that. I'd prefer using 95, but I don't have a disc for it. It's old. Moving on.
Obviously.
It's completely unrelated. Let's move on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One thing I
totally
just thought
forgot
of.
about that.
What?
Wingman. We totally
Yes.
mentioned that. Hooray for non-linear editing.
Okay, so I'm not sure how well this is going to go into the show, because we just remembered this in the outro. But it's a sad day. Week, or what have you. Wingman is leaving CIG.
Actually, has left. Like, his new company's like already a thing.
Oh, he was, well, he still had, like, the gold posts last I saw.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's really any reason to take that away from him.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of an icon
Yup.
for this. But yeah, basically what's happening is CIG is trying to centralize in their California office.
Well, leadership, that is, not development.
Well, yeah, I mean, because apparently it was getting really tough on Chris to go back and forth from California to Austin, back and forth, like, every few days, which I can understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, he's not the only one that's ended up leaving because of that, because he didn't want to leave, Austin. Like, there was like there are a bunch of other people from Austin, but
Well, I would
they
just
are
like. Oh,
some of them are making a new game studio, particularly Wingman and Michael Moreland.
and also Jason Spangler, former chief technical officer at CIG.
And I'll be amazed if more people don't sign on with them.
Yeah.
Now, Pixley will put an annotation or something up and a link in the video description, won't you?
I might. If this video goes up before Thursday, I'll hold off until Thursday because they're on a temp domain. They're on a temporary domain.
Oh, all right.
And they're using a temporary name for stuff, so I don't want to like link to that kind of stuff until it's finalized. So that way I don't have to like go back and edit it. As of this recording, they can be found at pzocker.com, which is spelled exactly like how it sounds, at least in American English.
Yeah, and there are quite a few people from the Star Citizen community there. Like, I think I saw Pleasure.
Legante's already there.
Yeah.
I'm already there. Yeah, bunch of familiar Kin Shadow too. Yeah, so a bunch of familiar faces over there.
So if you want to feel kind of like the old days and, not all loud and whiny, you can go there.
Yeah, because they're planning on doing, having their development much more open and available through a Wingman's Hangar type production, which is why Mike Moreland's involved. Imagine that. It is said that Galactic Inquiry shouldn't be affected by this. It remains to be seen as to whether that'll be the case. I mean, it seems like Galactic Inquiry's got a lot going for it, and I personally really enjoy the show, so we'll see how Moreland handles having to do both those kinds of things. If anyone can do it, it's him, because he's a badass.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. I've got to keep a better eye on that. I've not actually been to the site since I first heard about it, just because I don't really keep up with all that much anymore. Just Star Citizen and a couple other games.
Yeah. And in actually RP relevant news, a little over a month ago, a little website called StarCitizenRP.org was launched. See, we managed, and by we I mean I, for reasons we're not going to go into on this broadcast, I was able to secure an interview with the owner and admin of the site, Skymaster. So
you'll be hearing a lot of Pixley talking.
Actually, I didn't end up talking all that much. He did most of it.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I've not heard the interview yet.
Nope. Considering as of this recording, that was like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so without further ado, here's the interview. That rhymed. Alright, so I'm here with Skymaster. He is the creator and administrator of StarCitizenRP.org. Skymaster, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Alright, so to start off, let's just tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, a little bit about me. My name is Bill, and I live in Ohio, United States, and I've gone by the handle Skymaster for several years now. I live with my wonderful wife, Sky Maiden, and she also games with me, so I'm very lucky in that respect. I've got 2 children. They're both out of college and gone, so that means we're kind of empty nesters, more time for gaming. I've been a long-time PC gamer, and I was introduced to roleplay in probably around 2004 when I started playing World of Warcraft and Star Wars Galaxies. And now World of Warcraft was fun, but Star Wars Galaxies, that is what I fell in love with. I started to immerse into my character, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm role-playing, and this is really fun. So Sky Maiden joined me in those games about the same time, and I've been role-playing and playing MMOs ever since. Haven't looked back.
Wow. It seems like Star Wars Galaxies is a recurring theme among longtime RPers.
Yes, it definitely is.
Yeah. You all are too old school for me. I mean, you have kids out of college. That makes you at least twice as old as I am.
Yeah. Older and maybe wiser?
Probably.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I feel like we've got a diverse and interesting community. Both regular Star Citizens and role-player
Oh,
Star
yes.
Citizens.
Yes. That I agree with that.
So, when did you back Star Citizen?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I knew Chris Roberts and I knew the Wing Commander series. And back at my guild site, guild that I'm in, had several members mention Star Citizen last year. And for the longest time, I really didn't connect who was producing it and what it was going to be. I just thought it was going to be another EVE Online or something like that. I didn't want to be my ship being my avatar, and I don't know. I just didn't think it was a game that I wanted to really look into. But my guildmates kept saying, "Hey, you really got to look into this. This is a phenomenal game that's going to be coming out." So I took a look at it, looked at that video that Chris put together, and I had one of those jaw-dropping moments. It's like, oh my gosh, why did I not look into this sooner? So I wound up probably reading for hours and looking at videos, and I backed on, I think my first pledge I started with was August 29th of last year.
Oh, wow.
So I made it before the big sale, which, of course, yeah, that was very harmful to my wallet. But but yeah, I pledged, and I've been pledging, and I have not looked back on that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, the thing about, like, the jaw-dropping, like, why didn't I back this sooner? I backed on day 2 of the campaign, and
Wonderful.
I had that experience. Like,
I wish I could
hear about
have.
this 2 days ago.
2 days ago, yeah.
So, yeah. So my citizen number could have been a bit lower.
Oh
But
my
yeah.
gosh, well,
So
I'm
I guess
sure it's
I
pretty
get to be
low.
the old school one. in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
case.
there you go, yeah. And you're more wiser on that situation.
Yeah. Man, I can't even imagine the amount of material you had to catch up on.
I think I sat for I backed, but I sat for like 2 days straight just reading the forums and looking at things, and yeah, it's like, okay, I think prior to that, I was kind of in limbo. It's like, these theme park games that I've been playing, I'm just starting to get burned out on them. They're going nowhere for me.
Mhm.
And that was what was the jaw-dropping moment. It's like, oh, this is going to be the game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I had a kind of a similar thing going on, because right about when Star Citizen was announced, I was getting burned out on WoW.
Yeah.
What actually got me to quit WoW was that I was taking a really challenging class in college that took up all my free time. Like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So, despite as much BS as that class was, it made me quit WoW, and that's probably the best thing it's ever done for me. But yeah, I totally feel you on like the getting burned out on theme park type games.
Oh, yeah. It was so hard to immerse into my characters and role play, and yeah, when I started looking at Star Citizen, it's like there's a potential there that's just amazing.
Yep, definitely. I mean, when there was that potential on day 2. Let me
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah.
I mean, it's like it might have been primarily because of the words Oculus Rift for me. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I've gone at length as to the reasons why I find Star Citizen to be so good for role playing. I could go on for quite a while, and I actually already have on the podcast as to why I think Star Citizen is so good for RP.
You could probably write a book on it.
Yeah, you probably could. Someone probably will by the time it comes out, and I'm not
Well,
saying I wouldn't be the one.
I can see that happening. I can see a novel or two come out after after the launch.
Oh yeah. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's get back to you because we have a lot to talk about. So you mentioned that you had been in a guild when you were recommended Star Citizen. Are you in that same guild now? Is that your org these days?
Well, yes. The actual guild is called Grey Order. That's greyorder.org. We've been around since about 2004, 2005. Most of the guild members, we know each other. We got new people coming in, but actually that's the guild name. But our organization name for Star Citizen is Icarus Interstellar Incorporated, and we probably have about a dozen members from our guild that's definitely committed to play Star Citizen, even though our guild is larger. But anyway, we're taking on a sort of a straight-laced corporation look from the outside, but we're not so straight-laced underneath. So there's definitely going to be a twist on the corporation theme. So looking forward to that.
What is with all the RPers I talk to and being on the non-straight-laced side of things?
I don't know. I think it might be that a lot of role players, they want to do something that they probably wouldn't do in real life. Maybe something a little risky or something a little shady. And a lot of our members are that way. Like they tend to play an ex-smuggler or an ex-mercenary who, they're not evil, they're not cold-blooded killers, but they're gonna stretch that law just as far as they can, or maybe even break it.
So basically a neutral alignment territory we got going on here.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well then, let's move on to the actually plugging things and explaining things bit. So I guess for all the people out there, I guess first thing I should ask is, what is StarCitizenRP.org, and what does it offer us role players in the Star Citizen community?
Well, that's a good question. The simple answer, of course, is that Star Citizen Roleplay is a fan site. We're designing it for all role players that are going to be playing Star Citizen. But also, it's something that we want to be above and beyond just a fan site. We actually want it to be the foundation that we hope will allow us to build and what I'm sort of coining as the best damn roleplay community ever. And that's in all caps too. So yeah. So this game is going to be so big, so awesome, and I can foresee that we could build a tremendous roleplay community with the proper tools, the resources, and the networking. So, but right now we're kind of in the alpha stage. We're like Star Citizen. We're just kind of getting going, and a lot of ideas and things are in front of us. But right now, my first stage was to develop the site and to pull in some of the roleplay community, and to start on the basics of a strong leadership team. And I've accomplished that. We've got a little bit of the roleplay community in, and we've got a couple very talented members, additional members to the leadership team. And so from here, I guess the next stage would be to develop the tools and resources that we need in the community. As we grow, there might be suggestions of what is needed from the community, and that's what we're here for. We're here to serve the community, and we're not going our own route. This is about the roleplay community, what we can do to serve the roleplay community. And so some of the things that we're offering the community right now, like I said, we're in the alpha stage, but we have a variety of boards, lots of boards to cover just about everything about Star Citizen and roleplay. We're starting to get some guides, tips, suggestions for new role players as well as experienced role players. But I think that the key to what is going to be the biggest thing we're going to offer is it's going to be that leadership team and staff that we're going to increase over time. Right now we have a role play manager. Her name is Birdsong, and she will be responsible for things as coordinating role play, community, sponsored events, facilitating cross-guild role play, helping new role players as well as experienced role players. Got a lot of responsibility there, and she's a very talented person, and I look forward to working with her.
Yes.
We've also added a relations manager, Looney, and he's a very talented person. He's going to be responsible for monitoring the climate and the events between organizations that affect the roleplay community, coordinating, mediating relations, disputes, and things like that. So that's going to be a challenging job, but I know he's up to it. And then the near future, we're going to be adding a community manager to help with the forums, and an information manager that's going to be a challenging job because that's going to be over our news gathering and reporting services. So a lot of things to look forward to. My philosophy is build a strong team that can work both together and independently to serve the community. And it's definitely not about one person that's running the show and everybody has to follow. I mean, it's about the whole community. So that's kind of everything kind of wrapped up in just a basic outline there for you.
Yeah, you've basically given me an essay on just one question. Yeah. I would like to mention, though, that for those of you listening who haven't already met Birdsong, you should listen to the newest episode of Comm Chatter, in which we have a little chat with, well, in-character Birdsong.
I'm looking forward to that, yes.
Oh, yes. It is not out yet as of this recording. It's not even edited yet. I have not even opened Vegas. But, yeah, you touched on a lot of things that I'm going to have you go into a little bit of detail here. But I guess the first thing is kind of just the origin. What prompted you to start thinking about a separate forum for RPers in Star Citizen? And kind of piggybacking off of that, do you think CIG should have done this sort of thing themselves?
Oh, well, when I was considering this, I mean, the need was definitely there. I mean, I and a lot of my friends and a lot of people I just met when we discussed the roleplay community, I mean, everybody was like, yeah, the need is there. We need a home. Role players, I mean, we need to discuss and plan and network and, find new friends and all that good stuff. And I mean, we could have used general chat. We could have used fan art and fiction on the official forums, but that would have been terribly difficult, probably even a disaster, because I mean, as I know, and everybody that's a role player knows that whenever a nice post starts, somebody's excited or has a suggestion about role play, a few posts under, it's inevitable, but you get the post that says role play sucks because XYZ reasons. It's like, where do these people come from? Why do they have to show up? But anyway, so it's just you don't really have a good place to discuss all that intricate stuff that role play means. And so anyway, I started researching possible sites. There were a few that I knew were out there, and they were kind of starting to roll a little bit. So I started looking into them, and to my dismay, none of them were making any forward progress. In fact, there was a couple sites that seemed to just like quit and that nothing was happening. One of them was getting filled up with spam and advertisements, and so I tried contacting these people that were creating these sites to try to, hey, what's going on? And for the most part, my emails were ignored, and I just got frustrated. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to act. I'm going to get it done, and that's what I did. Now, as your question should CIG, should they have made a role play board or section or whatever? Should have, maybe, but could they have? I don't think they could have pulled it off. We would have needed, a dozen forum boards and specific tools and resources, and I don't think the mods would have been able to handle, the disputes that would have come up with the ones with the people who like to just trash and flame and stuff like that. So
yeah, yeah, I didn't even think of that when I asked the question, but it occurs to me like they would have to at least double their mod team just to support that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and we all know how much the community loves the mods.
It would have been a challenging feat, and like right now the mods, if there's a flame, usually they cross out text or they don't really remove it or anything, and once somebody comes in and really starts trashing people, I mean, feelings are hurt, and it just goes down from there. So
yeah.
With Star Citizen Roleplay, I mean, we'll build a team, and that team will look out for our members, and we're going to ensure that it's a comfortable atmosphere to come and gather and talk and plan.
Yep. Well, it seems like it's certainly done that. And this kind of moves smoothly into the next question, in that it seemed to be so comfortable that the core of the community basically moved in overnight. I mean, the first day I saw on the forums, there was like 26 people already on there. Did you expect such a response so quickly?
Well, no, I didn't really expect that. I thought that, I would really do all that work, get the site together, and maybe the first month there might be 5 people there. I don't know. I mean, I know there were a lot of role players out there, but it's kind of hard to advertise or to get the word out because there's not a lot of places on the forums to actually do that. And you can post something and like 10 minutes it's gone. It's on the second, third, and then it's down so far in the pages that it's hard to get that word out. So definitely. I was surprised. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had my own share of experiences trying to keep the Comm Chatter up on the fan sites page. Now it's just like basically every post in the past 4 months is just me like, hey, new episode, by the way. So that's
then gone.
Yep. So yeah, I definitely feel you on that. But I mean, the thread you posted on fan sites, and even the one on the in the subden, lasted on the front page for a few days.
Yeah, we had enough comments that that did help.
Yeah. So now we're over a month in, I believe.
Yeah.
We continue to see growth on the site. I mean, obviously there was this big push that surprised you, but did its continued growth surprise you as well?
This early in the game, this early in the development, yes, I am a bit surprised. I figure that the growth is going to continue to grow. But right now it's like I am very pleased that we've got as many people in checking things out that there is, and I mean it surprises me, but yet I'm also very pleased that it is happening that way.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled because I'll make no secret of the fact that I very much support the site, and it's also the most recent addition to one of my tabs that is always open, which is a very small and select group of websites.
Oh, that's good to hear.
One of which, of course, is the main RSI site.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's a good thing I wasn't saying anything when my phone went off. I really need to be good about turning things off.
That's okay. You got to have sound effects, during things like this.
I don't think Apple would be too keen on me taking their text notification noise wholesale, though. Alrighty. So, like I said, we're over a month in. Or do you have anything cool to implement? Any interesting features on the horizon?
Um, yes, we do. Well, I have, and I'm sure the leadership team, we've got a lot of ideas that are floating around in our heads and floating around that we're mentioning to each other. Few of the things I really can't say too much yet because I'm not sure how they're going to pan out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll mention a couple of things, like for example, and this is probably the first time it's been mentioned anywhere, so this will maybe be like the announcement, I guess. But Birdsong is working in the background on a Wikipedia or a wiki.
Oh.
Yeah, and I mean, when she brought that idea up, you know, when I started thinking about it, it's like the potential is tremendous because, you know, if the role play community has a dedicated and extensive wiki to, you know, you can do character bios, you can do ship registries, you can do organization histories and lore. I mean, there's so much you can do. So I don't know how far we'll go with it. It might depend on the community and how they respond to it, but that's something that's being worked on in the background. And I imagine we'll probably add some voice over IP services, not something that's going to replace the forums, but something where, you know, we can have get-togethers, talk to people, maybe some of the, you know, smaller organizations, even after launch, might have a place where they can actually coordinate things and stuff. There's different things we can, you know, use that for. But so there's a couple of things that we're kind of looking at, and we are definitely open to suggestions because we're all about, we're going to serve the role play community because we want it to grow strong, and you know, there might be some tools that are needed that we're not even thinking about. So, you know, we're always open to those suggestions.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say just for one that it's been entirely too long since I've had a really cool vent or TeamSpeak or Mumble server to just drop into and hang out. So I think that's a really good idea.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, we'll have to see. So that's the near future. What about the distant future? Where would you like to see the site go as we march onward towards the ever-elusive launch and even further?
Yes. Well, this is probably going to be a pretty generic and expected answer, but I would really like to see Star Citizen Roleplay becoming a very, very important part of the roleplay community as it grows. Personally, and I know this is possible, and I can see where we could feasibly have hundreds, if not thousands, of members coming together at the site as the roleplay community to, you know, plan events and to talk over, you know, story arcs between organizations. I mean, just so many things that you know, can be planned. So I really hope that Star Citizen Roleplay is going to be a part of that and really make it easy for a role player to come in and have all the resources and tools they need right at one place, a one-stop shop.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's certainly headed in that direction. I mean, Birdsong and I have already taken advantage of the capacity to organize and communicate, and I would have never found her if it weren't for the site, so...
Yep. That's what it's about. I mean, you know, role players can go to their own organization site, but that separates the community because you've got pockets here and there. Whereas if you have a place where everybody can meet, then all of a sudden it just opens up, you know, it becomes a small world, and there's so many things that, you know, so many possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just to wrap up, do you have anything else you'd like to mention about the site?
Well, I would say, I think I've probably rambled quite a bit enough, but I would say that if you're hearing this and you are a Star Citizen role player, maybe you're new to role play, you don't know where to start, you don't know what it's about, maybe you're interested in role play, no matter what level, what experience you've had, what you're interested in, no matter what organization type you're in, come join us and help us plan for a really fantastic future.
Well said. And I'll just tack on that by saying that I am also there and that I will be helping with this effort. So yes, the URL is starcitizen-rp.org. And the link will be in the description of this broadcast. But Skymaster, I would like to very much thank you for coming on the show and talking to us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to many more episodes of your show.
Why, thank you. Alrighty, and now back to the regular Comm Chatter Off Duty.
So we normally try to stay away from the more controversial topics, the ones that have been lighting up the forums, so to say. But there's one I've had in the back of my mind for a while that's been brought to light with the Bulldog release. Or the concept, anyway. That concern is fuel consumption. So, when the Bulldog was announced, it was said to be a long-range deep space fighter that could travel up to one system away. Now, just how big is a system in Star Citizen? We don't know yet. Is crossing it going to be a significant achievement for, a single person, without making fuel stops? Is it going to be not that big a deal? Because I don't know about you, but, like us, Pick and Shield, will be mostly in the sort of escort business. Mm-hmm. Not that kind, protecting people. And we don't want to have, stop and fuel up, leaving ourselves vulnerable at a gas giant, fuel depot, or bring along our own starfarer with fuel or something. That could just leave us completely vulnerable and defenseless, not to mention the person we're escorting, in the event we're attacked during it.
Alright, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we will do our interview with Senet, creator of Stars Oratoria. In the meantime, enjoy the theme to Stars Oratoria. You were listening to Comm Chatter Off Duty. HQ is on Terra. We do not work in the Terra system.
Though I imagine, there will be some cases where we could, we'd end up passing through or dropping someone off there, or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Also, how expensive will fuel be that you can buy processed? We know you'll be able to scoop it from a gas giant, but just how well will that work? And there's also been some talk about different grades of fuel. I would expect said gas giant scooping or whatever to be some of the lower quality. So you might get lower performance with that. It might not last as long. And then there could be a few grades of general consumer. Then there could be racing. Others for pure efficiency, what have you. So what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I know enough to really have an opinion on it. I mean, obviously, it would kind of suck if every time the Colonel wanted to do something, he'd have to, make 4 separate stops on his way from Terra to somewhere to actually do something. I mean, I would assume later on, as Pick and Shield actually gains notoriety and something resembling funds, the Colonel would have things relocate to a more convenient location. Or at least starting out, I would imagine that would not be favorable to the Colonel.
Yeah, I mean...
Sounds like something that would piss him off more than it would actually me.
But yeah, I mean, you don't want to have your own, fuel tanker following you around wherever you go, and you don't want to need a carrier just to get across space.
Yup. Especially since an Idris is not in the near future as of game launch for Pick and Shield, I would imagine.
Or most people,
that
likely.
Yeah.
Especially since, it was upgraded to a frigate a while back.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget that after it was a corvette so long.
Yeah. Although that does beg the question as to whether the Corvette will have some sort of storage. I mean, obviously...
I expect it to have at least, one fighter.
Yeah, I would think
After all,
one.
it's about the same size as the 890 Jump, and that has a little, what was it, X85 or whatever? It is something to think about. Fuel consumption, how far, how much will get you,
Yeah.
and what ship.
I mean, I would imagine
Obviously,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously we don't know how big a system is, except what was it, like the 0.2C or whatever.
Yeah, 0.2.
But then again, there's a whole rule of cool and whatnot, and etc.
And the proposed time dilation, which
Yeah.
we haven't heard much about since the initial announcement, and then the subsequent me being all mad about it. Okay,
Still not really a
sounds
fan,
mad.
but I can understand why.
Well, I'm not a fan either. I still... Okay, I wouldn't say vehemently oppose it, but it would make me really happy if they were to go back on that, let's just say.
But yeah, we don't really know anything about this other than it could be a problem.
Yeah, I imagine we won't really have a handle on it until, like, late alpha or beta for the
Yeah, at
persistent
least
universe.
until there's a persistent universe demo with multiple systems, jump points, and whatnot.
Yup.
Okay.
Yep. There's our civilized concern. Okay, so, as part of our 1-year celebration for Comm Chatter, I have a very special guest today. He is the creator of the long since ended Stars Oratoria, which inspired Comm Chatter, so we figured we'd have him on the show today to get a little peek into what exactly was going on with that. I welcome to the show, Senet. Senet, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, I guess first off, it's been a long time since you've been visible. So, why don't you go and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Sean, although I go by Senet online. So, but otherwise, I'm an older gentleman. I'm going to be turning 30 here soon, and I'm not too pleased with that prospect. But I went to school for filmmaking, believe it or not, and that involved a lot of audio work and that kind of stuff. So I ended up getting heavily into that, and I'm also a musician, so I do essentially just a lot of work with producing audio and recording and editing and that kind of stuff. And so I was in a band for a number of years, and we did a lot of that kind of thing. And then I always wanted to kind of start a podcast, but I never had a good subject. I had subjects that I was interested in, but most of them were already taken by podcasts that I was listening to already. So, for example, I really love history, and there's a great podcast called Hardcore History that I was listening to very heavily over the last few years. And I love music and writing and obviously video games, and I never felt like I had something interesting enough to say where I could fill up space on just general stuff as opposed to something specific. So I always was looking out for something that would be good to try to practice on or get a start with. And so when Star Citizen came up, I had a kind of immediately I had a good angle for how I wanted to approach it by doing the in-character thing that I did, and so I started doing that just kind of really just for fun, and that was kind of how it started. That's kind of more really how my background led into it.
So, like I said, Star's Oratoria has long since ended. A lot of people, shockingly, don't remember it, so why don't you go ahead and tell us what it was about?
Well, the podcast itself was essentially just a little peek into the universe before. I mean, this is right after the game was announced on with the Kickstarter and all of that, and so there was really no game yet. There was nothing as far. I mean, the only thing that we had was I don't know how many people who are in the community at this point really remember the very beginning of everything with the original video that we had, and that kind of excitement. But that was all we had to go on, and then the rest was just kind of imagination and hope and fairy dust and all that kind of stuff. So when I started it, really I was mostly drawing from kind of the game that we all imagined playing one day, of just being able to fully jump into a sci-fi universe and be able to pilot a ship and not be like a lot of games that had come before, not be stuck to or confined to the ship where essentially you are the ship. But be able to get up out of the ship and walk around and interact with people in space stations and on planets and so on. And so in drawing from essentially that imagination for that game to come that we all hope will one day arrive, I essentially created just this little fictional, took my own little bite out of the universe itself and just kind of inserted myself in there. And since we didn't have a lot to go on, even from a lore perspective, I just kind of winged it myself and came up with things as necessary, just for fun. So essentially, the podcast itself was just mostly in character, or not actually, really not. I would do an intro where it would be in character, and I would be kind of like, where's this character in the universe right now? What's he doing? And kind of little hints of who he is, or what mission or operation he might be running. But the intro and the outro would generally be in character, and then between that, it'd just be summing up what's going on, and then generally talking about what I really wanted to see the game become, and hopefully try to, from a community perspective, try to influence that direction to so it would hopefully follow that path of where a lot of us, I think, ideally hope it would reach.
Yeah, fantastic.
But that was the gist of the show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as someone who loved that show, I'd say that's a pretty good description. I felt like something that made Star's Oratoria special was the music, especially like the intro theme. Was that done by you?
It was actually before on the very first podcast. I recorded that intro probably in about 30 minutes or so, and then I just kind of slapped it on there. And then over the course of the show, what I like to do was, if the character had, I think he found a piano or something, and so I would record some. I recorded some piano over top of it, to kind of signify that he was doing that, and then they had like I did like some kind of choir kind of thing with like the Bonnu something, but I can't remember. So I would try to mess with it over the course of the episodes, but yeah, the intro itself, I just kind of slapped that together. But yeah, that was me.
Wow, you must be a really talented musician then if you're able to put that together in half an hour.
I appreciate it.
I say this as a programmer, so no musical talent to be found on my end.
Yeah, software makes it pretty easy, and if you have just a good synthesizer, it's not too hard. You just need to know some good chords if you want to, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's if as a musician, it's not terribly difficult.
So, you mentioned you kind of had the intro and outro kind of thing being in character, and I have to say you really did a fantastic job of kind of blurring the line between what was in and out of character, and I thought that was a really interesting and unique way to approach a podcast about a fictional property.
Thank you.
Certainly not something our show does. We have to keep our in-character and out-of-character stuff very separate because it just becomes a mess if we try to do it the other way. But why did you do the stuff in universe? What was so appealing about that idea?
I'm a role player at heart, and I like to, and I think it's probably stuff that I had mentioned at the time in the show. But if I play a game, I like to, especially a game where you create your own character. I pretty much like to put myself in that position. So I try to create the character as close to me as possible, and I try to essentially make the decisions the character would make. Would be the same decision I would make if I was in that situation myself. And then I feel like I can actually empathize with the decisions or whatever the character is going through, and also, it makes it more engaging for me. So in doing the podcast, it was essentially just an extension of that, where I was almost playing the game just in my head, before I can get to the point where we can actually play it on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally taking others along for the ride, which is part of the fun too. But I know that I would do the intro and the outro were definitely strictly in character, and then I would try to sprinkle little bits here and there of in character stuff throughout just the general chatter of whatever's going on or whatever I was summing up at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean that was certainly the case in the episode I guested on.
Yes, definitely. But even just like little bits about the my Jean companion.
Yeah.
I remember that, but yeah.
So, yeah. Speaking of the episode on which I guested, that just so happened to be the final episode of Star's Oratoria. What happened to it? How could you let me kill it?
Essentially, as you said, when I interviewed you, I realized that I really couldn't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that you could do a much better job, and I had to release the reins, and I had to let you start your own program unhindered by any kind of if I fell into the shadows, then there wouldn't be any distractions, and you could go on to shine in the light as you so deserve to do.
I would like to point out for everyone at home that Senet didn't know I was doing this until I contacted him for this interview.
No, the reason what you're asked what happened to the show, why did I stop?
Yes.
Well, outside of that reason that I just gave, I ended up having some issues with. It ended up becoming more stressful than really it was worth, and obviously when you do an episode like that and where it's, and I'm an extreme perfectionist, and I really don't like any mistakes in anything that I do. I like everything to be pretty much just be perfect, and that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge time commitment to do each episode, and obviously, when you're doing something for free, which is not, it's not a problem when it's fun, but when it starts to become a little bit more stressful for other reasons, then it's like, okay, well, I'm not really getting anything out of this except for stress, and so it's not fun anymore. So, and it's taking up so much time, so I pretty much decided to stop. But the reasons why it was stressing me out were primarily due to Well, without naming any names, I had some bad interactions with some staff at Cloud Imperium Games, and I also had somebody else who was doing a show at the time. I don't know if he's still doing a show, but who was really hounding me and competing, over competing with me for some unknown reason that I still I'm unaware of. But I'm not that I'm thinking about it, but and essentially the way that it ended up going about was, I felt like I was putting all this work into doing, a show that I was pretty proud of, and then I think by the time I was done, I ended up having over 100,000 listens.
Oh, wow.
Over the course of, and that was when I stopped. But that there could have been a few after that, but
yeah.
And that was with zero advertising. That was with obviously there's just me in my recording room, just doing some nonsense, essentially playing. But
yeah.
But I got to a point where it was like, okay, well, let's talk to some of the developers, and that could be exciting, and get some information from them, and maybe try to influence them as well. But essentially what I mentioned earlier by the vision that I think the community had, and that I definitely had as well for what the game could become. I think, and I'm seeing this in another game, which I'll get to later if you remind me, but it seems very often that the developers of games, they have like all the pieces in place to make the perfect game, but it just takes like so few things for the vision to be off and for like everything to just kind of fall apart. Not that that's definitely going to happen in any case, but it has happened in so many games that I've followed over the years, where it's like all the pieces are there, and then it's just like, oh, but this one thing is missing, or this, these other things. But and I felt like that in being able to talk with developers and interact with them directly, you'd really be able to try to instill the ideas that not that I'm a game developer, but I've played games for almost 30 years, and I know what I like, and I know what a lot of other people like as well.
Yeah.
But if I can ever get around to the point that I'm making, the other guy that was doing the show and one of the employees at CIG decided to play favoritism with me and the other show, and so I ended up getting, he ended up getting all the interviews, and like kind of rub it into my face and competing with me, and it was like, I'm not I am not competing with you, so I don't know why you're feeling the need to compete with me. It's like, I don't really care, but it's also I'm not sure why you're actively trying to make it so that I can't have good content on my show as well, or interactions with the developers as well, and then it just spiraled out of control from there, and I was just like, this is kind of stupid. There's really no reason for me to be dealing with this, or with these, this kind of stupidity.
Yeah. I guess
it's... I was very vague, purposefully so.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know if it really got the point across of what really happened, but without divulging too many details, then it's the best I can do.
Yeah, well, I think, I understand, and I think the listeners will understand. Yeah, I guess I should consider myself fortunate that by the time Comm Chatter happened, there was a bit more, there was a lot more content out there in regards to Star Citizen podcasts, so it wasn't like there was
right.
Like, we weren't competing against anybody.
Right. And well, the thing is, it shouldn't be a competition, I guess, is the point
not
that I was trying to make. Is it should just be kind of, you do something like this, and then I do something like this, and we each do our own thing strongly. But I think part of the issue was, and the crazy thing was, he actually contacted me to say this kind of stuff. But
What?
Yeah, I have, because I just pulled up Skype to talk to you, but it's all sitting in there because Skype keeps it for some reason. But the conversations that I had with this kid were insane. It was anyway. He contacted me specifically to say how he's actively trying to compete with me and doesn't want me to and so on and so forth, and is trying to do better than me, and so he's gonna trying to do the same kind of stuff, and it was just kind of weird. It was really weird.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, I mean, and it was really, I didn't have anybody to turn to kind of say, can you kind of get this guy to chill out or get off my case or whatever. But and so and like I said, it was just such a time commitment that it just wasn't worth dealing with.
Yeah.
With that kind of silliness.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, even because admittedly, I'm not as much of a perfectionist as you are. I mean, Comm Chatter's not nearly as well produced as Star's Oratoria is, I will admit, or was rather. But it is certainly a time commitment.
Well, it's easier when you only have one person chatting. I mean, I listened to your show, and with two people, that's a lot to edit, especially to keep it natural and so on. But no, I think you guys do a great job.
Oh, thank you. I didn't realize you actually bothered to listen.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Huh.
I think in one of the very first episodes, I mentioned how I wish that they weren't making it so that you bought ships to contribute. Although I did acknowledge at the time that it's a brilliant way to get funds. However, I like the idea more of I couldn't imagine jumping into the game, starting the game from scratch, and then not having any ship to progress towards if I had bought them all, or otherwise, not being able to progress towards one that I really wanted if I decided to buy that one because it was awesome. However, I think a lot of people have been kind of getting on Elite's case for the cost of the beta, and I think it's like 150 or it was 150, and now it's like 75. But when the game comes out, when the game releases, it's going to be, I think, 50 or 40, and that's obviously going to be in less than a month. But I don't know if the game's going to be able to sustain itself being an online-only game with a one-time purchase without having some kind of transaction or whatever like Star Citizen has. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of how they went about it. It's not my kind of thing.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't always leave the best taste in my mouth, but here I am sitting at High Admiral now.
As it happens.
I
have one ship. You guys can eat it.
I have more than half the ships in our organization.
I have my trusty 300i still waiting for me from the Kickstarter, but I don't know. I think at some point they should have transitioned from the idea that you're still kind of contributing to the crowdfunding and more to just the fact that you're pre-ordering the game, essentially. I think part of what leaves a bad taste in my mouth is the way that it's presented, because you shouldn't. When you have upwards of when you're getting close to like a high percentage of $1 billion, I think at some point you have to try to. I think at some point you have to stop pretending like you need help anymore to reach the goals.
Well, they did take the, and I'm not saying your concerns are any less valid, but at least they were taking like a tiny step in the right direction because they took the funds counter off the front page of the website.
Oh yeah, no, I wanted them to do that right away because they asked everybody, and I remember talking about that because I felt like it was more. I don't know. It was like at some point, at one point you're crowdfunding, and that's like in the Kickstarter campaign. That's in when they set up their website way back in, it's 2012. Is that right?
October 2012.
Good Lord.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So
I know.
At one point you're crowdfunding, and that's awesome. And it's like I felt so good when they got like 6 million when they were just asking for 2 million. But then after that, it just started to feel worse and worse to me. Where it's like, as I remember way back when, it's like Chris Roberts is in like a T-shirt and he looks bummy. And then like I looked at it, maybe a few months ago, and he's got like a slick blazer going and like the nice shoes, and it just doesn't feel the same anymore. It didn't feel the same pretty much immediately after they started just getting really like tens of millions. Because at some point it's like expectations are going to. I mean, I think we all knew this all along that expectations are going to far exceed. Always, our imaginations are going to exceed what they're capable of accomplishing.
Yeah.
And the more that they continued on that path of just adding stuff for the stretch goals and all this stuff and the millions and millions and millions of dollars, the farther, for me, that's just digging a hole of the farther you exceed that expectation, or the higher you build up those expectations, I think the more damage is going to be done. Not saying that the game isn't going to be awesome when it's finally done. I think that the image, especially when I was doing the podcast and kind of inserting myself in that universe that I was imagining, is going to be obviously so far different from, you know, where it's ultimately going to end up. But
alrighty. Well, speaking of more of the modern day, what are you doing these days? Are you doing other stuff like podcasts? Are you completely done with that and just moved on to other stuff?
I would absolutely love to do another podcast, and I have been strongly considered. I'm in essentially the same boat that I was in before I did the last one, where I can't figure out a topic that I would feel satisfied to do. Mm-hmm. But if I can think of one, then I would definitely be happy to do another show. I just don't know. You know, I wouldn't want it to be as. I would want to have somebody to chat with, like you do, because I think that it just kind of. It's a little bit easier to deal with as far as content goes. You don't have to kind of solely rely on yourself and your own ruminations and try to fill space by yourself for 45 minutes to an hour.
Absolutely, I find it a lot easier to stay motivated when I have Alderin, like wanting the show to be as good as it can be.
Right.
So yeah, I definitely feel you in that regard.
So I have considered just doing like a general, some kind of video game thing, or even just like general chatting about because I'm into a lot of different things. So I'm just like talking about all of them over the show, and it would just be more of like a character personality kind of show as opposed to like targeting any kind of specific subject. But I don't know if I have the kind of personality to carry that, so we'll see. I would definitely have to have somebody on as a foil to be some kind of comic relief.
Yeah, interesting.
But no, I'm considering it. But no, as of right now, I just kind of do my own thing. I write and I do some music stuff. So that's pretty much my boring existence right now.
What games have you been playing lately?
Oh, good lord. Well, I try to peek into stuff here and there, and I pretty much play just about everything. My big issue that I run into is kind of bouncing back and forth between trying to play like everything at once versus trying to actually finish one thing before moving on to the next thing. And I think we all kind of deal with that. But right now, I am playing. What am I playing right now? Valkyria Chronicles came out on the PC, and I kind of strictly do PC stuff anymore because I don't have any of the new consoles, those newfangleds. But Valkyria Chronicles I played on the PlayStation 3 way back when, and I never finished it because I was borrowing it, and it came out on Steam, and so I've been playing that and trying to play through it, and it's kind of like XCOM, only it has there's slightly different things, but it's like a World War II alternate reality kind of setting where it's made by the guys who did Skies of Arcadia, the RPG, which I really loved on Dreamcast way back when, and really cheesy voice acting, horrible voice acting, as generally is always the case with anime kind of dubbing, and just a lot of frustrating stuff that they kind of continue to put in their games. It's very console-y, but it's a very good game if you like XCOM style turn-based strategy. And then outside of that, if you don't mind me rambling, because I imagine we're
not at all.
Trying to get through Dishonored, which is that Bethesda first-person stealth game. I have trouble with stealth games, primarily because I want to do it perfectly, and it requires so much patience, but I always feel like I have better things to do than stand around it. Because you pretty much, any of those stealth games like Dishonored or the Hitman games or that Mark of the Ninja that came out recently, essentially requires that you have had played the level already, and essentially mastered it in order to actually play it to the extent where you're role playing the character how he would actually do it. So if you want to be flawless, you had to have already played the game. So I have trouble with that because I feel like I should be flawless already, and then every time I mess up, I always have to battle with save scumming or continuing forward and just coming back later. But I've been trying to deal with that, and that's about it. As far as space sims go, I've been dabbling with Elite Dangerous, and
that comes out in less than a month now, right?
Yeah, much to the dismay of many in the community. Although I wouldn't really consider myself a part of the community, but I follow all the fuss.
Oh.
But
Can you share some of the fuss? Because honestly, I've not been following Elite Dangerous at all. It's just someone posted that it was coming out in the Star Citizen Roleplay. I'm like, oh, already? Interesting.
Well, Elite Dangerous, mechanically and aesthetically, is really it's really incredible. They have the audio design is some of the best I've heard in any game I've ever played. Mm-hmm. However, that's pretty much all it is. It's just a framework where there's not much actual content.
Oh.
And so there's promises of, after the game is released, future expansions will include walking around your ship, walking in stations, and then seamless kind of planetary landings where you can land on any planet, and David Braben always likes to mention that you'll be able to hunt game, hunt big game and that kind of stuff, and drive around on vehicles on the planet side.
Oh wow, that's larger scope than Star Citizen's at now.
It's actually they're both kind of pretty similar, but also pretty extremely different. Where Elite it's going to be almost more realistic in the sense where it has the Milky Way galaxy. You have 400 billion stars, mm-hmm. And so the scope already is pretty massive. And then at that point, it's just a matter of, with procedural generation, how can they differentiate and have enough content where it's worth actually going to all the different star systems. I mean, nobody will ever go visit all 400 billion, but
well, yeah,
it's worth actually exploring and seeing what you can find and so on. But whereas I think with Star Citizen, there's a set number of systems, like 100 some, mm-hmm. And I don't think, as far as I'm aware, I don't think you're going to be able to seamlessly just land on a planet anywhere on the planet, like 1/1 scale. I think it's there's going to be like loading transitions or what have you.
Yeah, it's basically like an assisted landing type thing. So you go on this set path. Like it's supposed to look seamless, but you
right.
still have like where you land in the specific place.
Yeah, so like kind of like hubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's cool. I think the way Star Citizen is going to do it is more like, and for me, and this is kind of how actually my perfect space sim would essentially combine Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous. Like, they're both doing things that I really want each of them to do, mm-hmm. But I kind of want it all in one game. So if we could just like get the developers from Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous to just kind of like merge, and then like merge all of their money together, and then just kind of put all of their resources together, I think we'd end up having the perfect game. But as it stands, for me, Star Citizen ended up drifting a lot more towards like an arcadey feel, whereas Elite Dangerous is a little bit more realistic. But Star mm-hmm. Citizen is going to have more of like it's going to feel more like a Star Wars movie where it's a lot more content, a lot more things to do as far as that goes. But I don't know. I think what Elite needs to do, and in my rambling, I'll get around to the point of what the fuss is in the community. Mm-hmm. But what Elite needs to do is, if I had an Elite podcast, I would try to influence them to head more in the direction of EVE Online, where if you're going to have essentially an empty universe, you need to have the players and their interactions fill it up, and that's what's going to bring you back to the game. Mm-hmm. So what EVE for me was always missing was that feeling like I'm actually piloting a ship and flying around in the universe. And Elite actually feels like Eve, only I'm piloting the ships, and the audio design is amazing, and I feel like I'm actually in the ship. And actually, I have the Oculus Rift development kit too.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, my computer is not. I need to get a new graphics card because it can't keep up. But I have tried Elite with the Oculus Rift, and it is amazing. I mean, it feels like you are inside the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my dad do it too, actually, when he came to visit, and he was blown away. I mean, because I grew up with him getting me into all the sci-fi stuff as a kid, and so he's been waiting for this kind of thing way longer than I have. But and actually, he kept begging me to keep doing it, but it's too much of a fuss to set up, or too much of a hassle setting up the Rift and all that stuff. But Elite feels like I'm in space, I am in a spaceship, I am in the future and doing all these things, and they just need the content. But they also need, like I was mentioning, they need to have, what would be amazing is if they had it so that you could have players control sections of space. And then you'd have players, you'd give players essentially something to fight for and something to come back to, and to join up with a corporation or a guild or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then that would be essentially your gameplay, and then they could flesh out their own content as they saw fit. But if we're going to rely on them to create all the content and to keep players coming back, then eventually that's going to be exhausted, and they're not going to do it forever. Whereas with emergent gameplay that from a player perspective, like with the DayZ and Rust and those kind of games. It'll never run out because as long as there's players, then they're going to be giving other players something to do. However, the fuss about Elite right now is that they're releasing without finishing. David Braben gave an interview a few months ago where he described the game as essentially an empty house as it stands right now. The foundation is there, the structure is there. There's just no furniture. And they still need to create the furniture. They need to build the furniture. They need to furnish it and do all that stuff. And they haven't done that, and they're releasing the game. And so a lot of people are upset with that because there's not enough to do. And I definitely understand, because if you have if you release a game, you're going to get all of those release day reviews. You're going to get all that attention. And if the game isn't up to the standards it should be when that happens, then you're going to essentially turn away a lot of people right off the bat, and then that's going to affect all the future expansions that people are looking forward to and the player base. And then it's also going to affect the fact that, how much money are you going to get now to continue to do this stuff and to be interested in doing it to the extent that you originally planned. So that's part of the fuss, and then another part of the fuss is that they originally planned to have an offline single-player version of the game, and are no longer able to do that. So a lot of people are unhappy about that as well.
Yeah, I can see why people would be somewhat upset about that.
But outside of that, the framework itself, as I mentioned, is phenomenal. It has the potential to be a really amazing game if they can figure out how to do all of those things and that's when I had mentioned earlier about developers. They can have all the pieces and fall in place and know exactly what to do for almost everything. But it seems to me like David Braben and those kind of people at Frontier Developments, they don't know essentially what people are looking for in a modern multiplayer game. And the idea of like a theme park MMO where you're essentially, like I was mentioning, relying on the developers to continually create content that you're always going to exhaust faster than they can create, I think is something that's really outdated, and I think that I don't think they've realized that yet, unfortunately. So the game could fall apart before it even gets off its legs. So it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Yeah, hopefully they figure it out before it's too late.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, a month is not that much time to get a bunch of content in. I can say that from first-hand experience.
Right. No, I don't think they're going to have that much extra content in by the time it releases. They're relying on it being a living game, so once they release, they'll continue to just keep adding content. But you know, a release date is still pretty important for people.
Yeah, I would say so. Alrighty. I guess we can wrap things up now with our final question. What's next for you going forward?
That's a very good question. In my personal life or in my creative life?
Either.
Well, personally, I'm currently looking for a new job, so hopefully I can find something that appeals to my. I'm easily bored, so hopefully I can find something that appeals to me in that sense. But creatively, like I mentioned, I wouldn't mind starting up a new podcast. But I'm also working on recording my album and finishing that, and I'm writing a novel as well. So.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's pretty much it for me in the near future. I mean, as far as creative projects go, I mean, I do a lot of sailing and that kind of stuff, so I really get into that. But yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much me. I'm boring. I'm very boring. You didn't expect this.
I don't know. I think all those things are really interesting, and maybe it's because I'm a programmer and am incapable of producing music or like literature or anything. I make things work. So I think that's fascinating, and I wish you the best of luck on all of those. People
like you, Pixley, are much more important than people like me. I would love to be able to fix things and program, but I'm not smart enough.
I don't know, I feel like it's people like you that give humanity that special little bit of, well, humanity.
Well, I mean, for somebody who proclaims to be not very creative, you have a lot of creative projects in the running.
Well, thank you. Alrighty, well, that's all. That's all I have. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Oh, well, thanks again for coming on my show way back when.
Absolutely, I very much enjoyed it.
And thanks for having me on your show. I wish your comrade could have been here to join us.
Yeah, well, he and I will just have to have a very stern talking.
Just a heart-to-heart.
Yeah.
But no, thanks for having me, and I hope you have good luck with the show going forward.
Yeah, well, here's to another year. Thank you so much for coming on.
This day-ish in Star Citizen history, we hit 37 million. Windman's Hainer episode 46 aired. We had the initial t-shirt shipping. The first Sadaball lore builder. Earlier, the year previous, 2012, we hit 3 million.
Yep.
Oh,
go ahead.
Come a long way, haven't we?
Yeah, kind of. I went from 3 to 37 to, what are we at now, 60? 61? I always lose track because it's not on the front page anymore.
Yeah. And it'll be wrong by the time this airs anyway.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, as of this recording, which is 9:45 p.m. Central Standard Time on November 11th, we're at 61.36 million. So, yeah. We definitely have come a long way. We're finally at the point where we actually gotta worry about multiple years when we do this segment. Just wait until next year. That's gonna be even worse.
Well, I'm pretty sure we can skip like the smaller stuff, lore builders and whatnot.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just grabbed everything that seemed remotely interesting.
Is there anything else you can think of, or should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I feel like we should wrap this up. As always, we'd like to thank everyone who makes the show possible. Well, both the shows possible. All the listeners, CIG, Senet Van Ryn for inspiring us, and Wingman. Keep on flying, man. If you'd like to contact us, you can reach us at pickandshield@gmail.com. That is for comments, questions, suggested topics, especially if you want to learn something about role-playing and you want us to discuss it. Please send your topic in. We always welcome that. You can hear me ramble for another hour, like last show. Or if you'd like to guest on either this or regular Comm Chatter. Perfectly open.
Yeah, really. If you have an idea or a question or something, do send it in. Some of the best things we've had on this show are what guests or viewers have sent to us.
Yep. Absolutely. As always, your alignment doesn't necessarily have to line up with that of the Colonel Alderin.
Basically, if you have Skype and you have a microphone, you can be on.
Yeah. You have Skype, a microphone that isn't as bad as Alderin's was back when we started.
It was pretty good considering what it was. Anyway.
It was good considering what it was, but...
Enough rambling. This is an outro.
Yes, it is an outro. Bye.